This will be the only video you need to watch about boundaries, about setting boundaries, protecting boundaries, wondering whether you should set a boundary. And that's because I will tell you the only thing that you truly need to look for that's underneath all of these mechanisms and surface level things, so that you know this is truthful, that you can set this boundary and know that you handled it correctly, so that you don't need to experience a conflict or a confrontation, that you don't need to experience a discussion with this person. And it's just about one simple thing. I'll share that with you and also give you a few examples of these mechanisms to support it. Hey man, good to see you as always. Happy you're here. Let's set some boundaries. When we talk about boundaries, there is always this tension, right? There's always this fear of confrontation, of conflict, of discussion. How amazing would it be if we can set boundaries without experiencing that tension? Because boundaries are about personal borders that you have that seemingly are about principle, values, respect. And people crossing them already poses the idea that something is personal or that your ego is triggered. This is where we get to the core of the discussion. How can you set a boundary avoiding all that shit? How can you set a boundary knowing that you are in truth? It comes down to one difference: love and ego. Let's say I'm in a relationship and my partner always comes late. The only question I need to ask myself here is this about my ego being triggered, or is this about love? A case for the ego would be, I actually don't really care about my time. I don't like the idea of her being late, and it would be a better look for me if she was on time. A case for love would be, I value my time. And so if she were to continue being late, it would jeopardize our relationship. It would jeopardize my ability to love her. Because it is equally as important for her to make progress in my life, to create things, to use my time effectively, as it would be for me. This clearly is about love. If I didn't give a shit about my time and I'm not doing anything to begin with, then we are looking at a case where it's just the ego being triggered. And so why do we have conflict and confrontation when setting boundaries? That's because we are setting a boundary for ego. Because we are trying to prevent the external world from triggering our insecurities and self-doubts and limitations. And protecting those is always a bad idea. Hey, and still, if your ego is consistently triggered in a way, I'm not saying that this all should be taken and accepted. If you're in a loving relationship, you can still openly communicate about it. But this is not a place for boundaries. See what I mean? A boundary is a non-negotiable. Until here and no further. So you need to be goddamn sure where this is coming from, where this non-negotiable is coming from. So if your ego is being triggered, you can communicate this with her. You can talk about it openly, but you shouldn't do so expecting her to change any behavior, because it is triggering something inside you that isn't real. It's triggering a limiting belief, the fact that you're not good enough, that you feel superficially insecure about something. But you can still talk about it, right? And if she feels compelled or like it's no problem, she will change it. But this is not a boundary. If it's about love, this is where we place boundaries, because they aren't about us. They are about you two in the relationship, whether it be a friendship or a love relationship. Let me give you another example. If you are in a relationship and your girlfriend is going to the clubs consistently, again, we don't judge. We ask ourselves, the discomfort that I'm feeling here, is this simply my ego being triggered? Or does this impact my ability to love her? For me personally, if that were the case, I would approach it like this. Simply feel less empowered, less loved, and less motivated to protect and provide and care for her in the relationship. So this affects her. And that's exactly how you communicate it. So also within a friendship, if the behavior of that person is hurting your friendship for the both of you, then you are doing a noble thing to outline that boundary, because it is protecting the friendship, it's protecting the relationship. Some examples, of course, will be so direct that you immediately should and can respond, right? If it's a public case of disrespect, or it's simply something that directly opposes your values that she is aware of course you respond immediately. But most cases will be a little bit in the middle, that you are not directly sure of whether it is your ego going off, or it's about love, which is also about the other, so in this case, her. If you are in doubt, then it is very wise to first observe and let it marinate for a bit. Maybe it was a one-time thing where your ego got triggered, and then it's very wise to not respond immediately. But if something continues over time and becomes a little bit of a pattern, then you must wonder, is this behavior of her getting the best version out of me? Which is what she wants, right? She wants the best version of you. So, okay, after marinating it for a little while, and you see, okay, this is clearly about love and it's not about ego. And we get into the mechanics, right? How do you communicate it to her? And it's extremely simple because it's authentic, right? We are not dealing here with ego. We are dealing here with love. So you can simply, very authentically tell her that. You can simply say, hey, listen, what you're doing here is making me feel less empowered in a relationship. I feel that it would be better for our relationship if you would stop that behavior. This would get the best version out of me. It would allow me to love you more, right? And if you're in a healthy relationship, you communicate it this way, then your partner is never going to oppose that. So you can clearly outline your non-negotiable, your boundary, and feel absolutely safe in the fact that she's going to want to be loved. She's going to want to make you feel empowered. She wants to be in a loving relationship, but this only works if you know for a fact that it is about love and not about your precious little ego. And lastly, just an example of the mechanics of this. My last relationship at a family gathering, we're talking to my uncle, and there was a little bit of tension between me and my girlfriend. And so in that moment, she made a comment that conveyed a feeling of, I am not doing enough in the relationship, in a kind of passive-aggressive way. Made me feel uncomfortable, made my uncle also feel uncomfortable. So of course, not in public, you're going to set a boundary there, but the moment I was alone with her, this is an example of something I don't need to marinate, because I know from a place of love that our relationship will not be enjoyable, healthy, or sustainable if we involve other people in our tensions, and if we slightly disrespect or poke at each other using other people. This is something that opposes love for everybody involved. For her, for me, and even for my uncle in this case. So it's a very clear example of a non-negotiable, of a boundary, of something that I don't want to see again. It will hurt everybody involved. And so it makes it very easy to outline that boundary. And if you're with a good person, then you don't have to be nervous or doubtful or insecure or afraid of conflict or confrontation, because if you outline that boundary, you are sure that it's about love. And so you can be sure of the response you're getting from her. If you do not, however, if you are sure that it's coming from a place of love and she will still start a discussion, a conflict or a confrontation, then you should think about the person you're with. If you know this is the right person for you and it's simply not her day, so she's still defending, create some space. Go to the gym, go do your own thing. There's nothing more to say to her. You've outlined your boundary and she chose still not to accept it. So give her some space to let it land, to let her think about the fact that it came from a good place, and she will then come back to you and apologize. At this point, there is no relevancy for you to be in the same room or the conversation. It's not to get back at her, it's just to give her the space to land that this came from a good place, that this is protecting love and that this is protecting the relationship. And that's really all there's to boundaries. This extends to friendships, this extends to any kind of relationship. Figure out, is it ego or love? Are you not sure? Marinate, reflect on it for a little while. If it remains uncomfortable, if you can formulate ways that it hurts the relationship, the mutual connection, that it hurts other people involved, then it opposes love and it's time for a boundary. In that case, you don't have to be tense or confrontational or anxious at all, because you are not protecting your own ego. You're protecting love. And that's an honorable thing that you do not need to feel anxious about. The mechanics of that is simply an extension of that same principle. You don't need to add any flavors or spices. You just need to be authentic. Outline how you know that you observed that it's about love, that it's not about your ego, and communicate it. And that's it. See you in the next one.